But you know who else is going to help them get to that Super Bowl? And we talked about him yesterday, and it's someone that I'm still high on, despite what people are discussing with the safety room and Brian Branch and Iffy, and should Kerby be the one that gets kind of squeezed out? Well, Kerby went on, I believe, NFL Network and talked not only about the Detroit Lions Super Bowl aspirations, but what he's been doing this offseason. Gained 15 pounds, fully recovered from the hip injury, a little bigger. And he had a lot to say. So let's get to this clip about him speaking about the Detroit Lions or Super Bowl aspirations, and then we'll talk about what he's been doing to become a better player. But here's that clip.
Speaking of hype, your teammate Aiden Hutchinson said there is well-deserved hype around your Lions after going to the NFC Championship game last season. What about that hype? Why is it well-deserved?
I mean, it just goes to show that, man, we're here, the Lions, we're not the same no more. We're just coming for it all. You know what I mean? We want to change the narrative around the organization and just showcase for the fans and showcase for the city.
Kerby, I was actually at that NFC Championship game. It's last season, of course. How transformative? Because this offseason, it feels like this team is hungrier than ever. And I'm just curious, within the locker room, as you get ready for training camp, how transformative that moment was, knowing you were really that close.
Like Coach said, man, it take a little bit more. You just got to keep on going. You can never stop. Because once you stop, it's over. And the fact that we got that far, it shows that we can do this. But we just got to put the little things together and just come together as a whole team.
That's what it's about. I mean, you heard Kerby there, and he also made CBS. They're an all breakout team, and it's players on rookie contracts that could take the next step in 2024. And a player from the NFC North, they did safeties. He made the safety list. It's him and Jair Brown from the 49ers, who I actually like a lot. I do like Jair Brown out of Penn State. But Kerby Joseph made that list as a potential breakout player. And again, he spoke about how he's gained some weight, 15 pounds. He's fully recovered. And, he's excited to get back this season. They asked him also, I don't know if they asked him specifically, but it brought up, because you know how Kerby got a lot of crap for how he tackled, going at people, T.J. Hockenson and who's the tight end? Tyler Higbee. Yeah. And he said, it's not going to change my approach. If I see ball, I'm going to get ball. It doesn't matter. And the most impressive, one of the more impressive things about Kerby, and I brought this up yesterday, is, the 8 interceptions in 2 years. The consistency is very valuable in this league. He had the same year. What?
Nothing. Keep going. I'm sorry. I'm just my mind's going. Keep going.
He had the same year last year that he had basically his rookie year. He's just consistent.
Exactly the same, actually. 82 tackles both years and 4 interceptions both years. Literally, I made that. I don't know if you guys could see.
I was looking at your notes. Yeah, and I was okay.
Literally the big word I put for Kerby when I watched this and went over this, I was like, Kerby Joseph could be great in the NFL. It's just he's been consistent. You said it the other day, Jeff. He has some slip-ups in coverage to where he lets up some big plays. If he could find a way to just cut those, and he ends up being because he's been consistent for 2 years. 4 interceptions in back-to-back years is insanely good for any player. So that's big time. But if he could find a way to get consistent to where he's not giving up those plays, and he just turns into an absolute dog without giving plays up like that, Kerby Joseph can be one of the best in the league. That's why I think they have him as a breakout player. It's because he's put the stats up and he's made big plays, and in national televised games and in big time games, there's just these small, and there's just these small slip ups that he has every once in a while that I think a lot of Lions fans and a lot of people are can't have that happen. And if he gets extremely consistent when it comes to that game after game after game, he could be one of the best in the NFL in his position. I think it's just that's all it comes down to. Him putting up those numbers shows how good he can be, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think Kerby's play, as far as how he plays the game, is always going to be inconsistent. There is going to be times when he misses as far as on tackles. With him adding weight against the run, I do think that'll help. But I think as far as just his consistency and willing to know that, okay, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to make up for them next drive and go make a play. So I can live with that because that's a lot what people loved Glover Quinn when he was in Detroit. And I loved Glover Quinn. He led the NFL interception. I think it was like 7. And he was a guy that always took chances. Yeah, he missed on some, but the ability to make plays that he has, not a lot of other DBs can do that consistently, to your guys' point. So I don't know if I expect him to break out, but I think he's going to be a guy that as long as he's on the Detroit Lions secondary, he's going to be leading the team in interceptions. Like, you can bank on that. There could be a year where maybe Brian Branch does, but as far as just a ball hawk safety that can create plays and zone coverage, whether you can run man coverage with your cornerbacks and you can say, hey, Kerby, hey, Branch, go make a play in zone coverage. You can do that now, especially with bringing in DJ Reader. So I do think his play is going to step up, but I don't think it's going to be like a huge jump. I think Kerby Joseph is always just going to be Kerby Joseph.
Yeah, I think that's what you get with Kerby. Like, you get the big play ability. You get the turnovers that he will create, which are so valuable. But then you kind of get the other side, which, like, you're risking it. But sometimes he's going to give up some plays. That comes with the territory. He's not going to. You can't have all the risk and reward without, or you can't have reward without the risk. Like, that's my point. That's it is.
I
what
do
it
think like the difference though between like players like Kerby and then like the elite players in the NFL, the All-Pro players, is like not giving up those like
that, and just in the run. Like, when you have players like that put up that type of numbers interception wise and then stop the run, that's when you start looking at the Troy Polamalu's, the Ed Reeds, the players in that tier. And there's no disrespect to Kerby. I just don't ever see him being that. I could see Kerby being like a 1 or 2 time Pro Bowler. And that's, again, not a knock, but I just think even with the emergence of Brian Branch, I think Branch is always just going to be kind of putting a shadow over him. And there's something that he can't really help.
Yeah. And it's the reason why I'm so high on Kerby in the safety room. And I mentioned it. We talked about it yesterday, re-signing who, and we went through guys that are going to be available for extensions at the end of the season. And Iffy being one of them, I mentioned out yesterday, I think Iffy would probably be the one, if he has a big year this year, to leave, because you have Kerby and Brian, and you're going to have to re-sign some players. And I'm comfortable with Brian and Kerby. And it's not a slight at Iffy. I know what Iffy brings. It's very valuable. They have good safeties. No one's denying that. But when you have Kerby Joseph out there, it just, again, I say it again, it changes the way quarterbacks just have to play. Like, they have this level of fear because Kirby's out there, down there somewhere, and he's going to force turnovers. Like, you just have to account for that. And not just the turnovers, but he gets his hands on a ton of footballs. I mean, I think he had a career high in pass deflections last year, or it might have been the same as the year prior, but he gets a ton of pass deflections. He gets interceptions. Like, it not only just turned the ball over, but he gets his hands on footballs, which, I think that does matter. The coverage stuff, yeah, I mean, I get it. But, when you have when you have a better defensive line, it kind of helps everyone else. That to me what is going to happen. But I think Kirby's going to come out, show people, show everyone, and not here in Detroit, but at least nationally, like, hey, I'm one of the better safeties I can be.
I hope so.
You got to be a little better in coverage. That's all.
I think Klotz is right with this one though. Like, if he's got to break out, like, I think Kirby's Kerby, but like for him to break out, like, you have to take that. Like, I just pulled up some of the stats here from some safeties and like tackles. Some of these guys are at 130, 140 total tackles, 120, and he's at 80 the last 2 years. So like, he has to take that jump. Like, he has to go out there and finish tackles and make plays, be a playmaker. And like, that's what those great guys do. They do that, and they go out there and make plays on the ball. That's kind of my mindset with it. But like, I kind of agree with Klotz.
But do you think this is a genuine question? But you know how when we look at box scores during the season, and you see like your corners and safeties lead your team in tackles, it's usually a bad thing because the defense.
Not so much safeties. Because safety is a lot more times, like if you get through, especially wherever you're lined up, maybe for a free safety like Kerby, because you broke the defensive line, the linebackers. But even with like a guy like Kerby, like, there's a chance that he's going to miss the tackle. Like, I think it's like Kirby's one of those players where it's like, just do your job, do what you're good at. Don't try to do anything else, because when you try to branch off of that, that's when mistakes are made. Like, people forget that Kerby Joseph was playing wide receiver in Illinois a couple years ago. Like, this guy's not one of those guys that's just been playing safety forever. So you're excelling at one thing, at making plays. You have Brian Branch, you have Carlton Davis, you have Terry Arnold, you have Amik Robinson, you have Ennis Rakestraw. You have all these guys in front of you that are just consistently stable at what they do. You know that they're not going to be putting up highlight plays as far as in the turnover room, maybe Brian Branch, but you know that Kerby Joseph can be that guy. You have all the security in front of you. You have the flexibility to be able to be like, hey, Kerby, let's see what you can do here. Go get one. Go take a risk. Like, that's Kirby's job because he does that better than anybody on this team. And that's what he'll always be. But as far as stopping the run, you get Derrick Henry running at Kerby Joseph, and I think it'll always be like that through Kirby's career.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Can I add this though real quick? I think just on Kerby, I think a couple things. One, I don't know if we'll ever have a bunch of tackles just because I don't know if that's him. And also, there comes if you're a player like Kerby and you're a ball hawk, like you're not always going to get thrown at either. You know, I guess in the run game, like you said, it's different. But like he's not going to have. I think quarterbacks are going to do their best to avoid throwing it at him. You know, like throwing at him directly, unless there's guys where
that's where you got to. That's what makes like the elite one to do it consistently. Because like, all right, now you know about Kerby Joseph. How can Kerby Joseph make cover 2 look like cover 4? You know what I mean? So okay, the quarterback's gonna try to get one out there, but because he can cut, like that's what makes him so good. He can cover half the field in 3 seconds.
There was a couple plays he made last year like that, like the Raiders, where he came across like halfway across the field, and I believe that was the one I'm thinking of.
I mean, a lot of his highlight plays are just like, oh my God, how did he get there? Because it's a fade down the sideline that you're like, oh, another touchdown, and here comes Kerby Joseph just out of nowhere. Against the Vikings, you're probably thinking about Boone.
Yeah,
it might have been the Vikings one. Yeah,
nuts.
Yeah, and
I would love to take Kerby Joseph's over in interceptions this year. Like I think he gets another like to that point. If that's like, hey, this is your job, go out there and just be elite at your job. The man's gonna go out there and get another 4. Like, give me his over. If it's 4.5, I'll take 4.5. You go out there and get 5. Like, give me that all day with Kerby. Especially like someone in the chat put it, as elite as your run defense is on this team, he doesn't like that's not his job. Like, he doesn't even have to worry about like that.
And you have 2 linebackers that are 100 tackle guys,
130 tackle linebackers. Like, you're fine. Like, yeah, I get that point. Like, you don't need Kerby to go out there and get 130, 120 tackles. Like, stay with the 80. Just go out there and just ball hawk the whole time. And you know, like, I'm with that. Whoever said that in the chat, I don't know who it was. Give me the over though. Over 4.5. Give me the 5+.